So Sony has explained why the DualShock 4 controller does not have touchscreen. Do we really need touchscreen? But before we get to this video, here's the question of the day. Okay, so the PS4 controller doesn't have any sort of touchscreen on it. But is it even going to be missed? Does anybody care? You know, they've explained it in this little, I guess, interview regarding Toshimasa Aoki. He's the product planning manager. And he was talking about how the PS4 controller prototypes, they made all kinds of different ones, like over 20 of them. 20 different, I guess, new models, and trying to experiment and see which one would work. And one of it actually had a touchscreen. And the reason that they ultimately scrapped it was that the game teams felt like having to look down at the controller is not what they want to do. They want to have the consumers concentrate on the big picture that they show on the television screen. So they had this idea of actually putting a touchscreen on it, but they took it out because they just didn't. I mean, you don't want people to look down constantly on the controller. It doesn't even seem practical. It seems very distracting. It's not something I would want in a controller. And it's funny because they made comparisons with other gamepads that have a touchscreen, particularly the Wii U, where the players can use the touchscreen to navigate through the menus, inventory, interface, etc. Nintendo has mentioned that the gamepad opens up new methods of gameplay, but this functionality has not been universally praised. Tekken boss Katsuhiro Harada said looking back and forth between the two screens is distracting for fighting games. Hey, there's another fucking genre, man. Look, I made that, oh shit, I made that video about fighting games. And this is another one of those things where it doesn't benefit fighters at all. And that particular genre where everything has to be visually constant, you have to always look at the screen. With something like a touchpad, it's more along the lines of casual shit, or, you know, slower paced games like RPGs or something like that, or strategy games. It's not necessarily something you'd want in a fighter, because unless you're actually seeing everything on the touchpad, meaning the actual gameplay is right there in your screen on the touchpad, it doesn't work with games like that. And not every genre. I wonder if Nintendo ever fucking thought of that. Like, there are certain genres that will not work with touchpads. This gimmick. But as far as the PS4 is concerned, yeah, they made over 20 different prototypes of it. Would have liked to have seen some of it, because it's funny that he describes how there's different types, man. They experimented with all kinds of different models. They even looked at the 360 controller for some sort of influence. The analog sticks, we tested having the analog sticks on top, since the Xbox has the left side on top, above the D-pad. Especially for the shooters. The 360 controller is good for shooters. They tested combination of analog stick patterns and placements. A couple of sticks at the bottom, like the DualShock 3. Dual sticks offset, like the 360. And 2 sticks at the top, like the Wii U gamepad or Pro Controller. And it's funny that they also mentioned how when Nintendo came out with the Pro Controller, we were like, wow, that's just like our prototype. That surprised us, Aoki said. I don't know if he was implying that maybe Nintendo copied them, or it's some sort of weird coincidence. I don't think Nintendo copied them at all, if that's the actual, even a thought. I think that certain designs, you can only go so far. You can only have certain various styles of placements with these controllers. You're gonna run out of ideas pretty soon, you know. You can only have a certain amount of placement that's ergonomically proper and workable. They said that the stick placements just wouldn't work because it would break players' muscle memory. I think the PS4 controller is good for what it is. It's pretty much the same thing as before. It's very familiar looking. I just hope that, you know, the analog sticks are better. You know, just probably closer to the 360 in terms of, what do they call it, like the sensitivity and shit like that. Let's see what the commenters have to say. Deuces3 said, I like the DualShock controller designed the way it is, but it's good to hear that Sony is exploring all options for improvement. Fallen1X said, ultimately, however, blah blah blah, sounds more like they want gamers to know they're playing with a PlayStation controller and not feel like more of the competition. Oh yeah, the muscle memory thing, yeah, that one's weird. What the fuck was that? Muscle memory. Yeah, I mean, you can play different fucking controllers and understand and kind of, you know, memorize how to work around it. We've had different controllers throughout the years. It's not like when you pick it up, oh, you completely forgot how to work it. They all pretty much have the same general function. Muscle memory. I don't even... That's just memorization skill. That's not even some sort of... Oh, you're only familiar with Sony, so you'll only understand the Sony controllers. Like, that's the best way to memorize it, is to just have the same exact model. You can have a different one and memorize that and just enjoy it, you know? Like, it might take some time to get used to, but it's not going to take forever. Maybe a few days, maybe a week at the most. It depends on the game, too. Like, muscle memory, that's dumb. It's fucking dumb. Persia13 said the 360 controller is just right. Just right. No, it's fucking not. It's a good controller for shooters. I like it. But it sucks for fighting games. It's not just right. The gamepad fucking sucks. Or the D-pad, I should say. The D-pad is terrible. So it's not perfect. It's garbage in terms of the D-pad. That thing is practically useless. Just one singular piece of plastic, and the sensitivity's all fucked up. Terrible. Except it needs battery. Without battery, it would be perfect. No, I mean, if it has built-in battery, you mean? Because all fucking controllers need battery, you know? Wireless will need battery, so of course you gotta have battery with it. I mean, and that's just one thing that I don't think you're gonna be able to get rid of. It's always gonna have separate batteries you gotta put in, or rechargeable batteries that's built in. But it's always gonna need recharging. I mean, you can't... Other than that, then bring back cords, you know? So, the 360 is not a perfect controller. It's a very good controller, especially for shooters and other genres like that. Except for fucking fighting games, but it's, yeah, again, it's not perfect. And here's the answer to the question of the day.